27th day of Adar, corresponding to March 11, 2021. Today's class has been graciously sponsored by Mr. Isaac Savdeye and family, Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved mother, Yvette Bat Clotilde Beishak Sasson, Aliyah Shalom. Additionally, today's class has been graciously sponsored by my wife and I, Le'ilui Nishmat, her beloved grandmother, Esther Bat Sultana. Yiratzon, that to the words of Torah, her neshama have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. Today, we learn again the topic of the mitzvah of Shishit. So the Gemara from Masechet Menachot, page 44a. We'll learn the Gemara just for the sake of learning. I ask the Kahal, God forbid, not to misinterpret the Gemara or the story that the Gemara will discuss to a certain extent is an incident of a certain adult, mature matter, but I think that is important to deliver the message of the Gemara as well. So the Gemara says that we know well that when a person does mitzvot, it creates positive energy. The Ben Ish Chai calls, for example, the mitzvah of Shishit or Talet or Makif, a godly light that surrounds the person, like an aura that surrounds the person. Several weeks ago, we mentioned how the different parts of the Shishit, the knots, the double knots, the 5 sets of knots, the 8 strings, the 4 main strings that are folded in half, those become 8, represent different openings of the human body. We also mentioned that if you look in the corner of the Shishit, we have 7 strings which are more or less the same length, but then we have the shamosh, the longer Shishit. That is, it's called shamosh because this is the one that actually serves to do the loops in the corner of the Shishit. And the Hida Kadosh explains that this extra long string of Shishit represents the heart of the person. The heart, in part, is in the driver's seat of the person's physical functions, and every other string represents different parts of the body. For example, 2 strings represents the 2 eyes, then you have the nose, then you have the mouth, then you have the 2 ears, then you have the milah. All those openings, the Hida explains, and many others, that it's telling us that the physical, even though there is something called the entire human body, but every part of the body also has its own mission to say things in a proper way, to eat kasher, to see kosher things, not to listen to forbidden things, etc. But now the Gemara also brings the following statement. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, or Mehila, Tanya, we learn in the Baraita, Amar Rabbi Natan, En lecha mizvah kalla shekatuv b'Torah. You never have a light mitzvah, an easy to do mitzvah, written in the Torah, she'en matan sechara ba'olam hazeh, that there is no some type of compensation. And I like to clarify that the compensation that we're talking about is not necessarily financial compensation. Many times it could be happiness. Many times somebody came a few moments ago and he said, Rabbi, please give me a blessing. I said, okay, what blessing do you need today? What blessing will you like? She says, I need to have a blessing of peace of mind and tranquility. You know how valuable it is to have peace of mind? Peace of mind is more valuable than money. Because even though a person may have money, but doesn't mean that he has peace of mind. And yesterday we learned, if you remember, that by giving charity, the person receives as a bonus peace of mind, tranquility, and security. And that's exactly what I said to this wonderful individual. I made a quick Mishaberach, I explained what I was saying, and Be'ezat Hashem, we hope that the person is able to find peace of mind internally. It affects directly or indirectly the life of the person, the environment of the person, as we all can imagine. And this is in a way what we learn also quoting the Mishnah from Masechet Pe'ah. For those who attended virtually yesterday's class, we concluded the class by quoting a Mishnah that is part of our daily morning prayers, at least in the men's department, the Mishnah of Masechet Pe'ah. And I'll repeat only the 3 lines which are relevant to today's Gemara. And it says, these are the following actions, or mitzvot, that a person does in this world. The person will receive the benefits in this physical world, but the main compensation and reward to the person is after 120. What are these mitzvot that we get double bonus? Kivud Ab Ba'em, mitzvah number 1 of the list, one of the easiest but yet most difficult mitzvot of the Torah. Honoring our parents is not an easy mitzvah. It sounds easy. You may say, Rabbi, who doesn't honor the parent? The question is what people call honor. For Torah standards, honor means standing up when they come in, not sitting on the chair, taking care of them, speaking to them respectfully, making sure not to embarrass them, making sure to be a good example, because otherwise, if a person is not a good person, or a person doesn't live in the proper way, who gets to blame? In part, the parents, God forbid. But I'm sure that everybody tries to do the best that they can at all levels. Gemilut Hasadim, performing act of kindness, the sky is the limit. The list is endless. How many different ways of how many different formats of acts of kindness are there? We already learned a long time ago the Gemara in the volume known as Sukkah that it says you can perform an act of kindness financially, physically, verbally, emotionally, and we even learned back then that just by listening, even if you don't say a word, by listening, you do a mitzvah of Gemilut Hasadim. Maybe sometimes the person needs to vent, as they say. And you just lend a listening ear and you help the person to remove some of the stress that is in the heart. Bikur Holim. Bikur Holim, definitely not only the program Bikur Holim, if it's in Brooklyn, or if it's in Deal, or if it's in Aventura by Oz, any other place in the world, but Bikur Holim literally means visiting the sick. Regretfully, with the current situation, visiting patients in the hospital, it's almost non-existent to a certain extent. Maybe different cities have different protocols. I know what's happening in here, but guess what? If I cannot go to a hospital, but I can do something else. I can pray for the person, which is beautiful, but you can also pick up the phone and talk to the person. And this is something that I've been doing. I'm sure many people have been doing, even recording short video clips so the person sees you, the person listens, or even call them via FaceTime or WhatsApp video, etc. Be'achnasat orhim, the mitzvah of welcoming guests. Be'ashkamat bet hakneset, and come to the synagogue early. In other words, the person comes to the shul when the tefillah, before tefillah starts, as much as we can. Ba'ava'at shalom ben adam lahavero. The next one, bringing peace among people, among friends. Uben ish leishto, between husband and wife. And you start at home. Start at home with your wife, with your children. Then you venture out, then you expand. Betalmud Torah keneged kulam. But the learning of the Torah supersedes all of these mitzvot. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that we're going to learn Torah only and we're not going to do the mitzvot. The idea of the Mishnah is to tell us is, yes, there is the importance of doing these mitzvot, but make sure that the learning of the Torah is together with the performance of the mitzvot. Why? The short answer is that without the person learning Torah, the person will never know what does it mean honoring parents. To some people, honoring parents means taking them to a doctor, give them some money every week or every month, and when you are in the supermarket, you call your parents, Mom, Dad, do you need anything? That's beautiful, don't stop doing that. But from a Torah perspective, honoring parents is much more. Ma'achilo, malbisho, you feed your parents, you dress your parents, you take care of your parents if they are limited mobility, you don't contradict them, you don't raise your voice, you speak to them in a proper way. That's why there is a pasuk that says, Unkalel aviv ve'imo, God forbid, a person that curses the parent, umakeh aviv ve'imo, or a person that hits the parents. What does it mean in hitting a parent? Who have heard that a son or daughter will hit a parent? Regretfully, maybe out there in the world, could be. But you know what the true meaning of that statement is? You hurt your parents with your mouth. You speak to them in a way which is not conducive to respect, is a bit belittling or even condescending or disrespectful. That is the meaning of honoring parents. And I'll finish this Mishnah with the following sentence from the great, the one and only Pelei Yoes. And it says, the mitzvah of honoring parents has two dimensions. Level number one, when the parents are alive, with all the examples that we just mentioned. Level number two, when a parent is no longer among the living. By following our beautiful traditions and teachings and guidelines of the Torah, and keeping their Shem Tov, and acting in a proper way, and doing things le'ilui nishmatam, doing things in the loving memory, that is a way also the post-mortem, so to speak, we fulfill the mitzvah of honoring our parents. So this is the Mishnah that we quoted. Comes the Gemara and it says, Se ulmad mi mizvat sisit. This was the introduction to the following story that I gave you the heads up before. Now, the Maharsha explains that the mitzvah of sisit is a positive commandment, and is also, and I think that we are going to agree on this, that is a mitzvah that is easy to fulfill. Ladies don't need to do the mitzvah of sisit, and the reason why is not only because the sisit has the halachic requirement of a daytime commandment, but the ladies are a walking flashlight from a Kabbalistic perspective. The men need to put on the sisit in order to bring that godly light. The ladies carry it on with them. You know, sometimes you see people or diamond dealers who walk around with a certain headpiece that has like a magnifying glass and a flashlight on top of it, like if they work in the mines, hamavdil. So the ladies walks around with a Shekhinah, and therefore they have the automatic godly light that surrounds their life. And obviously the wife reminds the husband to fulfill the mitzvah of sisit and checks siyot for the husband, etc. Obviously she becomes an equal partner in this mitzvah. But listen to this extreme story. And I call it extreme because I'm giving you the heads up. I hope that there are no children listening to this story at this moment. They should be in school by this time, so I think we leave it among adults. There was an incident with a certain man that was very careful with this particular mitzvah. שמע שיש זונה בגרחי הים שנוטלת 400 זהובים בשכרה. He heard that there is a lady overseas that for the service that she renders, she charges 400 golden coins. שיגר לה 400. He sends her the money. I don't know if he sends her Western Union or Zelle or Venmo or Cash App, or he sends every week something. Bottom line, he sends her the full amount. Bekava la zeman. And he set up an appointment. He says to her, I don't know how, but via telegram perhaps, or whatever they had back in the day, I'm arriving XYZ date. כשהגיע זמנו, when his time arrived, ישב he arrived, וישב על פתח הבית, and he sat by the door. נכנסה שפחתה, this lady's maid servant saw him, and she went to her boss, and he says, אותו אדם, that fellow that sent you overseas the 400 golden coins, he is at the door. What do I do? אמרה היא, ייכנס. This lady, you have to understand, I'm trying to be as respectful as I can, but the moral services that she was offering. אמרה היא, she says, ייכנס, tell him to come in. נכנס, this Jew came in. הציעה לו 7 מיטות. She prepared 7 beds, 7 levels, how to climb. And the Gemara says, כל אחת ואחת, each and every one of them, סולם של כסף. The ladder between levels was made out of pure silver. בעליונה של זהב. But the top where she was waiting for him was made out of gold. עלתה בישיבה על גבי עליונה. She went up and she waited for him on the top level. כשהיא ערומה. You can imagine the meaning of that word. Definitely the way God created mankind. בהפו עליו לשב ערום כנגדה. He gradually went up and he sat next to her. But it says that he's undressing. באו 4 סיסיותיו ותתחו לו על פניו. The 4 sisiyot, as he's removing the sisit katan, the sisit smack him on his head. Nishmat, he escaped. Beyashav lo al gave karka, and he went down to the ground floor. Now, this lady, which never happened to her, that a customer that paid is going to leave. Be'av she nishmeta beyasheva al gabe karka. She also ran down after him. And she said, Gapa shel Romi. Basically, she said, by the life of the Caesar, Amrali, she said to him, Eni manihitcha ad shetomar li mamum ra'ita bi. She says, I will not let you go of my house until you tell me what blemish did you see in me, in my body, that you ran away. Amarla, this man says, Ha'abda, the reality of life is, Shelo ra'iti isha yafa kemotech, that I never saw such a beautiful lady like you. So then, obviously, her question is, so why did you run away? You sent me the money, you pay, you came, and now you're running away? Ella, he says to her, Mizvah achat tzivanu Hashem Elokenu. We have among our commandments one particular mizvah, Besisit Shema, and the name of the mizvah is Sisit. Uchtibah, and at the end of the Sisit says, Ani Hashem Elokechem. Twice at the end of the Shema says the same sentence. Am Yogad, Ani hu she'atid lifara. I'm the one who will collect, basically activate judgment for those who sinned. Be'ani hu she'atid leshalem sechar. But on the other hand, I'm also responsible to compensate, to reward the one who did mitzvot. It sounds very interesting what he's saying. Achshav, he says, at that moment that I was undressing and removing the sisit, nidmu alay kerba'a aidim. He says, now I have 4 witnesses to my act of inappropriate behavior or immorality. I have 4 witnesses. You can't escape the witness. Amralo, this lady says to him, Eni manihacha, I will not let you leave. Ache tomarli, until you tell me, Ma shimcha, what is your name? Uma shem irecha, and what's the name of your city? Yani, where do you live? Uma shem rabbecha, who is your teacher? Who is your rabbi? Uma shem midrashecha she'ata lamad bo Torah, and what's the name of the yeshiva or the kollel that you are part of? or the community that you're part of. I ask you a question. Hold on. Let's see the end. Katan benatan beyadah. He wrote all the information, name, rabbi's name, synagogue's name, yeshiva name. I ask you a question. Don't try this, please. But if God forbid, who will be this fellow in the story of the Talmud? Will anyone in the right mind will give her the real information? They didn't have trackers or whitepages.com and all kinds of the technology that we have today, that in 2 minutes they do Google search and they find you. They have nothing. And this was overseas. And says the Gemara, listen to what happened with this lady. Amda, after this Yehudi left, nothing happened between them. She got up, behilka kol nesachasea, and she divided all her possessions, 3 parts. She diversified her portfolio that was going to be gone soon. Shelish la malchut. Ben Yoyada explains that she was resigning from her position of providing services, and therefore perhaps she will pay a fee, taxes to the government, bribes or corruption payments, so to speak. So she bribed them not only for them to let them go, but they should not look after her when she is going to become part of the Jewish people, which is the end of the story that's coming up. Ushelish la'aniim, and a third also she gave to the needy. The Ben Yehoyada explains, why did she give tzedakah to the needy? She says, very simple. I'm going to pave my road for the money that I earn inappropriately. I'm giving it to the needy. So already from the wealth that she had, a third went to the government, a third went to the needy, and a third natla beyadah. She took it with her. Chutz meotam masaot, with the exception of the beds that we mentioned. Remember the beds that we mentioned, 6 of silver and 7 of gold? And the question is, why she did not give this away? Perhaps because they were utilized for sins. Perhaps she did not want to give it out to people. What did she do with them? Maybe, I don't know, maybe she melted the gold and she got the silver, the gold. The Gemara continues and it says, so she traveled, ubat lebet midrasho shel Rabbi Hiya. Now she arrives into town, and where does she go? She goes to the kolel of Rabbi Hiya. Now, there are different Rabbi Hiya that are mentioned in the Talmud, and it says, Amra lo, she says to him, Rabbi, saveh alai, beyasuni gioret. Please give instructions to the Bedin that they should make me a convert. Can you imagine for a minute now? She gives up, or all 2/3 of her wealth is gone, and she gives up that lifestyle. Probably she came properly dressed to the yeshiva, and now she wants to become part of the Jewish people. Amra labiti, Rabbi Hiya says, my daughter, do you really want to convert because of your conviction in your emunah of God? Or shema'anecha natat be'ehad min talmidim. Maybe you like one of the yeshiva students, and you know that he will never even look at you if you are a Gentile woman, and that's the reason why you want to convert. And we know the halakha. Conversions due to marriage are not valid. Conversions without an observance of the mitzvot properly, it's not valid. And that's a challenge today. that is happening in Eretz Israel with the conversions of certain movements among the Jewish people that are not really corresponding to the guidelines of our beautiful Torah. So this lady did not answer anything. And what did she do then? Hosea ketav miyada benatena lo. She gave them the note and gave it to the rabbi and told the rabbi exactly what happened. And what does she say to the rabbi? The way that Rashi and the Tosafot says, and it says the Rashi, Besipra lo kol me'ura, and she tells Rabbi Hiya every detail of what happened, Sheleshem Shamayim mitgayeret, to convey the message to the great rabbi that she wants to become a Jewish convert for the concept. ששמעה נס גדול של חומר מזבח שטפחו לו 4 סיסיות על פניו. She understood that the Shishit were waking up this Jew who paid 400 golden coins. That's a lot of money. אמר לה, the rabbi said, לכי זכי במקחך, go and you're gonna marry him. אותם מסעות שהסעת לו באיסור, the attempt of being intimate by committing a transgression, הגיע לו בהיתר. This happened now in a permissible way. And the Gemara concludes, זה מתן שכרו בעולם הזה. This was an interesting fact that this person received in this world. ולעולם הבא איני יודע כמה. But after 120, the person doesn't know what will be the reward for the mitzvah of Shishit. Now, I respectfully ask the Kahal Kadosh that please do not dwell too much on the story per se with all the colorful details that the Talmud gave us, because thoughts also have an effect on the person. And this is an isolated case that the Sisiyot actually activated judgment on that moment against this person. Can you imagine you put on the Shishit and the Shishit suddenly smacking the person's face? But I'm sure that there are perhaps reasons beyond our knowledge why this situation did happen, which I recall reading many years back in one of the commentaries of the Talmud. But I think that the message of the Gemara is to say that the mitzvah of the Shishit protects the person, which it reminds me to share once again, because Divrei Torah Sirichim Hizuk, we have a concept, the Talmud says that studying of Torah requires reinforcement, and reviewing the learning of the Torah also requires reinforcement. So every so often we may learn together or repeat certain things that we have learned together in the past, and the only reason is because we want to reinforce it. It's like a husband says to the wife, "Good morning, sweetheart, I love you, have a beautiful day," etc. Now, how good the wife feels when she hears this from the husband. Now, is there a need for the husband to say this every day? Doesn't the wife knows that he loves her? Probably yes. I hope she knows that the husband loves her. But it's not the same like listening to that statement or writing a love note when you leave in the morning. And that's small things that enhances the relationship between husband and wife. Guess what? The concept that the husband wears Shishit, it enhances their marriage as well. And I will say, I will read the short, I'll try to keep it quick. I like to review from the Ish Masliach and Tefillot Kahalacha very quickly what are the benefits of a man wearing Shishit Katan throughout the day. So it says, these are the benefits. Matzila mina avera. It protects the person from sinning because the person has Shishit and there is a certain aura of godliness that comes on the person. Matzila me'ayin hara. The Shishit Katan now also becomes a bulletproof vest. What does it mean? That the mitzvah of the Shishit blocks the ayin hara of coming into the life of the person. Obviously, some exceptions apply, especially if the person is very flashy, or the person makes a lot of noise, or the person talks or does or has things that attract the eye, the ayin hara becomes activated. Matzila min hamastinim behamazikim. It saves the person from the accusing angels and damaging angels. Why? Because every instant that the mitzvah of Shishit is on the body of the person, it's like you're making a deposit every second of the day. Guess what? If you're making deposits every day into your account, the bank will ignore if occasionally a check is bouncing because they see you constantly giving. Same thing in here. Shamayim says, hold on a minute, before you activate judgment, let's see the account status. Oh, he's making a deposit. Oh, he's making another deposit. No, another deposit. In the olden days, making a deposit meant spending an hour going to the bank, waiting online, etc. Nowadays, who goes to the bank? You deposit checks, you do transactions. You can deposit cash into your bank account, but the rest of the stuff, everything is done online, everything is done via the app. Continues. Matzila min hakaas. Now that we have a bulletproof vest, not only is to fend off darkness, negativity, evil eye, etc., but also gives like a sense of a tranquility to a certain extent that is it helps the person in the topic of anger management. Matzila mi gehinam. Also after 120, it saves the person from some of the spiritual steps known as judgment. Ma'arich yamim. It blesses the person with longevity, and the reason is very clear and very obvious. If a person constantly does mitzvah non-stop, automatically it's like you are using your cell phone, and the cell phone is charging as you are using the cell phone. What is the advantage? The advantage is that even if you use it, the cell phone has full battery. Yet, if you use the cell phone and you're not charging, for every second, the battery eventually goes down to zero. And that happens to many of us on a regular basis. Zoche lakum betehiyat hametim. Also, this mitzvah that a person invested throughout their lifetime, it gives the person the merit, the zechut of the topic of their resurrection, which is one of the 13 principles of faith. Beshekula keneged kol hamizvot. And as we learned in the past, the mitzvah of the Shishit, it's equal to all of the mitzvot of the Torah. So I finished this topic in the following way. For those husbands that are wearing Shishit, Hazau Baruch. For those husbands that are not wearing Shishit, may we start today based on today's Gemara. For the wonderful ladies, as I said in the past, you become an equal partner with your husband's mitzvot. And especially in this mitzvah, if you remind your husband, Rohi, sweetheart, whatever you call him, say, please, I have the Shishit for you. Remember what the rabbi said, put it on, and you bring good blessing to the home, to the marriage, and everything else. Ladies can also be partner of the mitzvah by checking the sisiyot, meaning to say that each corner of the Shishit contains 8 strings, and the 4 strings on top, which are folded in half, make sure that they are also 4 and they are not caught. If any string on the top is caught, the Shishit is no longer kosher. If a string is missing in the extremities of the Shishit, it all depends when will remain kosher or not. I suggest you, if you have a question on that, contact your local Orthodox rabbi, so to speak. but by you reminding your husband, you become also a partner in the mitzvot of the Shishit that has so many benefits and so many gifts coming to the person's life. Okay. So we covered that. Aha. Let's finish the class in 5 minutes with your permission, and we'll discuss some of the messages of the Mussar of today. The message of the Mussar discusses, should a person speak or should a person stay silent? I'm sure that we are going to agree that maybe there is a third option. Sometimes we need to stay silent. Sometimes we must listen. And sometimes we must speak. So the Gemara brings, the Mussar rather, comes from different sources. And it says, the Rambam, that there were certain Hachamim that were very meticulous in not only the way they spoke, but on the topic that they spoke. They would think in advance, was there a need or was there a purpose or a requirement for they to say something. Most of the trouble that we get into when it comes to the topic of speaking is because we're not really thinking in advance what we are going to do or what we are going to say. And that's why I remember the teacher in elementary school will always engrave it in our head. Literally, he will say, think before you speak. Piensa antes de hablar, the way it's go in Spanish. So it says, the Gemara in Megillah, that it used to be a place that when you're going to buy speech, in other words, for every word will be 1 coin, for every word not said will be 2. Amar, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, in the name of Rabban Shimon, Kol yamai gidalti bin hachamim. He was raised among the sages. And someone asked him, okay, you know so many rabbis. You have seen so many rabbis through so many years. Can you tell me one lesson that you learned from them, or a certain pattern of behavior that makes life more meaningful? Says the Mishnah, Kol yamai gidalti bin hachamim. All the days of my life I was raised among the sages. I found the best vitamin for life, and this vitamin is called shetika, scot, yani silencio, sheket. And that's why it says, Shlomo HaMelech, al tebahel al picha, yani don't run to say things, yani don't be impulsive when it comes for you to say things. Why? Because everything is recorded. And sometimes, due to impulse, the person may do or say things which later on will regret. Al ken, says Shlomo HaMelech, Yod devarecha me'atim. The less we speak, the better it is. Obviously, we're not telling you don't speak to your wife. There must be communication between husband and wife. But also some of the duties that the husband must fulfill with the wife is to be a good listener. And the Gemara brings further, Ma'o manuto shel adam ba'olam hazeh. Can you tell me a secret of longevity? Umanuto means your professional skill. But here the footnote explains 2 opinions. One opinion says, what should be my main goal in life? As a human, as a behavior individual. Other opinion says, how do I benefit, or what do I need to do in order to receive the blessing of longevity? It says the Gemara, Yasim atzmo ke'ilem. It says very simple, put yourself deaf mute. Why? It seems that the less a person speaks, or the less the person talks, the more life the person gets. So what does that mean then? Perhaps it means that a person gets an allowance of words. Obviously, this does not include words of Torah, tefillah, of encouraging people, of Kedusha, of Tefillah, of Tehillim. We're talking about the words known as Devarim Betelim, nonsense. And it says that when a person exercises this type of self-control and discipline, a person will be in the driver's seat of the life. Because the nicer things we say and the more we don't say unpleasant things, so that gives the person internally also a certain type of tranquility and peace of mind, which is in a way what we mentioned before, the mitzvah of Shishit. One of the benefits we mentioned is what? Masila min hakaas. Save the person from anger. I hope that no one is an angry person, but unfortunately, since we are humans, and it could be somebody has this deficiency in the character trait, and it's not easy. It's not easy because it creates a very toxic environment if, God forbid, there is an anger issue in the marriage, in the relationship, in the home, in the parenting skills. So definitely thinking before we speak and doing more listening than speaking and being careful with this mitzvah, as I said before, is a simple, affordable mitzvah, but it's a mitzvah that has so many benefits and so many dividends. We'll wish everybody to have a beautiful day, and once again, we express our gratitude to our dear friend and member, Don Isaac Savdeye, for graciously sponsoring today's class, Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved mother, Yvette, Pat Clotilde Ve'Ischak Sasson, Alav Shalom, and as well to my family and I, my wife and I, for graciously sponsoring today's class, Le'ilui Nishmat, her beloved grandmother, Esther Bat Sultana, Aliyah Shalom. I wish everybody to have a beautiful day, and Be'ezat Hashem, we'll see each other tomorrow morning via iTorah.com. Have a lovely day, everyone. Shalom u'bracha tova.